Hello, everyone. Welcome to my show, Curryupstartup Leadership Podcast, a podcast to spotlight purpose-driven Asian leaders making an impact. This is your host, Priyanka Komla, joining you on our 97th episode of Curryupstartup Leadership Podcast. Super excited for the countdown as we ace our 100th episode next week. I would like to say a big thank you to all our loyal listeners and to our amazing listeners who are going to tune into this episode as well. As a reminder to like and follow our LinkedIn page by following me, Priyanka Komla, and our Career Startup Leadership Podcast page to receive your LinkedIn Live notifications. If you're watching this on YouTube, give us a like and subscribe as well. With that being said, I have an amazing guest lined up for today, a women tech trailblazer who also loves listening to a lot of our episodes. So she's a listener as well as an amazing guest that I would love to bring onto this show. And here you go. Nisha Paliwal, who's the Vice President of Software Engineering at Capital One. Hi, Nisha. Welcome to the show. Hey, Nisha. Welcome again to the show.
Hey, Priyanka. How are you?
I'm doing great. Super excited. And, I want to delve into your success secrets and share it with the world.
Really, really happy and honored to be here, Priyanka.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nisha. For our listeners, I've known Nisha for a handful of years. We met at a tech conference in Capital One a couple of years ago, and since then we've stayed in touch. And Nisha listens to all our episodes, and she gets super excited to, as she gets all these nuggets of wisdom. So I thought, hey, why not bring Nisha to the show so she can share her nuggets of wisdom as well as the inspiration that she has derived from these episodes as well. So before we begin, let me give you a brief introduction about what Nisha does. She's an emerging women technology leader. She's a visionary technologist. That's how I see her. And she's a passionate change agent. Previously in fintech and small business tech, she's now the Vice President of Software Engineering at Capital One. She leads the enterprise with the Women in Tech Task Force, which is focused on retention and development, as well as leadership in Empower Her. Along those lines, she also has a big heart for her associates and desires for them to feel valued, engaged, and psychologically safe so they can bring their whole selves to work. She also volunteers at Code VA. And I know a lot of her cheerleaders and team members are going to tune into this live session as well. So we would love to hear from you. If you're tuning in and watching this live, please drop in a quick hello and any other questions or comments you have for Nisha. We have an amazing mentoring session that Nisha is giving away for one lucky live listener. So feel free to grab that wonderful opportunity right away. All right, Nisha, I want to start with your background. You started as a microbiologist and then you do this huge pivot into being a technologist. And look at you, I'm amazed at you being an amazing technologist, but at the same time, helping others succeed by elevating themselves. So tell us a little bit more about how did you make this pivot happen?
Yeah, Priyanka, and before I get started, first of all, happy Valentine's Day to everyone. This is a perfect day to be on a podcast and be talking to all of you. So hopefully you guys are having fun with your loved ones. And second, Priyanka, I really want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. This podcast that you started, I know 2 years ago when you had your son, your vision, the pay it forward theme that you have here, it inspires all of us. I have personally listened to many of your podcasts. I can't say all 96, but many, many. And what I get out of them is sheer inspiration when I listen to, and so many endless tips of right from your own brand to a lot of things people are doing in their career and how they are achieving. So many, many thanks. And I'm sure the 100th one I'm looking forward to who's the guest. So really, really congratulations on that, Priyanka.
Thank you so much, Nisha. Really appreciate the admiration as well as I feel very honored to learn from you on a continuous basis as well. And to our listeners, happy Valentine's Day, happy Galentine's Day. We're here bright in red and pink to celebrate this auspicious occasion, right? What better way than being on this episode to learn more about each other?
Yeah, so now to your question, Priyanka, like you said, I'm a master's in microbiology. That itself is, has been a big journey for me to pivot into computer science. I had real passion in microbiology research and development, but due to some family reasons and due to, my personal reasons, I had to pivot long time back into computer science. I would say I'm a self-taught engineer. And that self-teaching actually has not stopped even now. Last year, I finished my security certification. early this year, I finished my AWS certification, and the journey continues on the learning curve. And in that entire journey, what I have been inspired and from, I guess, leaders like yourself and many, many others, mentors and coaches who have really taught me this big notion of paying it forward. As you learn, it's one thing for you to get the certification and you to grow in your career, but every step, really, how do you pay it forward? And you make sure you bring along a couple of your people along with you in that journey. And it's just amazing to see what people can do once you show them the path. So it's really inspirational for me, for my life coaches and many of the mentors that I have had. And I hope to be that to many of the people who want to follow me and want to learn from me.
That's amazing. And I love this episode with you, Nisha, because you bring your authentic self. And you're someone who shares some of the challenges that you've gone through and some of the ways in which you have pivoted successfully. And I think our listeners would be deeply inspired by all the key takeaways from this episode.
Yeah, I think most of it is my own journey. Like we have talked in the past, right? I have 20 years. I came to this country in 98, and corporate America has taught me a lot of things. And at least I can share a little bit back of that journey with you all. So hopefully it's it's useful for some of you.
Hey, absolutely. I'm totally on board with that. So Nisha, we have a couple of live listeners cheering in for you. So let me acknowledge them. We have Kajal Wood, who says, woohoo, Nisha. Thanks, Kajal. And we have Satya, who says, hi, Priyanka. Happy Valentine's Day. Thank you, Satya. I'm so glad you took the time to be with us today. So to our listeners, we're going to focus on two major aspects in this podcast. One is the PI model, which is the secret success recipe of Nisha, on how this could be used in a sector agnostic way to elevate your career. And two, how do you create psychological safe environment so your teams feel comfortable bringing themselves, their authentic selves to work? And I think that's a very important topic, especially during the COVID pandemic, because remote working has totally changed the paradigm, the complete landscape of our working environment. So how do you create that space for all of us? That's something that we can learn from Nisha as well. And as a bonus, we get to know the other fun side of Nisha through this process. So are you ready for it, Nisha?
Go for it, Priyanka.
All right. We have a couple more live listeners as well. Let's acknowledge them. We have Gayatri Mantrala, who says, happy Valentine's Day. Hi, Gayatri. And we have Raja Abbas, who says, excited. Hey, Raja, welcome to the show as well. All right, so we spoke about your pivot into from microbiology into being where you are today as a tech trailblazer. But when you look back at your career, Nisha, what would be the top 3 skill sets or traits that have helped you become who you are today and would be inspirational for our listeners?
Yeah, I think I want to summarize that into, I have these acronyms I come up with, simple ABC letters. So the one that you're talking about is actually 3 simple C's for me. One, as you can imagine, microbiology to computer science to all these languages that I have learned. Curiosity. So I'm a very, very curious person. I ask a lot of questions. I'm not shy to ask probably the most foolish question in the room. However, I will make sure I ask the questions till I am sure of what I'm about to be doing. So one, I would say, is curiosity. Second, I would say I have, again, thanks to my mentors and coaches, I've been able to build confidence along the way. Not that I know all the topics and all the subject area. To give you a quick example, what I'm doing at Capital One since January of last year, all through pandemic, is dealing with some mainframe and trying to figure out a path forward from mainframe. Guess what? I've never done mainframe all my life. But I am confident because of my curiosity and the continuous learning theme, I will be able to figure out a path out of that as well. So keeping up confidence, I'm not saying overconfidence, but make sure it is confidence. And the last I would say is clarity. So I have been very conscious and very focused on my career all through my journey. So when I pivoted from microbiology to computers, yes, that was due to some personal and health reasons and so and so. So it was almost a necessity. However, since then, since I've come to this country, I've been very, very clear on what I want to achieve. So I would say, summarize, those three C's have paved my path: curiosity, confidence, and clarity.
Those are amazing three C's that we can always remember at the back of our minds. And, having that curiosity, Nisha, interviewing almost like 100 episodes, 100 podcast guests on my show, curiosity is a key factor that I see is very unique amongst leaders, because you don't want to follow the status quo. You want to look at, what can be done beyond the status quo. And that's where innovation happens. So I'm so glad you're reiterating curiosity as part of a leadership trait.
Yes, absolutely. And I'll add to that, right? It's not making sure when you learn, you're not afraid to unlearn the same thing and relearn it. So that's the entire theme of my career, is learn something. It's okay to unlearn what you learned and relearn it from a new angle. So this continuous cycle will make sure whatever is the topic at hand, you will be able to, hopefully pave the path forward.
That's very true. Let's delve a little bit deep into this aspect. Curiosity is a great skill set to have, but for a lot of us, there are two things that I see as barriers. One is it's beyond your comfort level. You're used to a certain routine, and the learning and the unlearning process creates a sense of discomfort. And then the second aspect is the sense of fear, the sense of failure, because you don't really know what's at that cusp of curiosity. How would you deal with those personally?
Yeah, I mean, that's an ongoing, I guess, debate and battle that you have with yourself, right? So again, going back to my examples and how I have dealt with all of them, is when you're on a learning path, one thing I have never given up is it's okay to learn from any level of the organization, right? So I'm a VP right now in Capital One, and many of if you talk to like 2, 3 levels down, they will all tell me none of my VP ever had come to me and talked to me the way I do. I consider each one of the individual that I have in my life have something to offer, right? So overcoming that, that complexity that we are in, right? My title doesn't allow, my status doesn't allow, because I'm 20 years in tech doesn't mean I know the whole lot, right? So it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to say, I don't quite understand. And it's okay to ask that foolish question. And the second part, I think, goes back to something we are going to talk a little bit more, is psychologically safe environment. So as a leader, of course, I need to create that environment. But even as an individual, so when I talk to my seniors, right, this dreaded image that is in my head sometimes, like, what will they perceive me as, right? That dreaded image always kicks in. So how I face that dreaded image is finding those counterproductive behaviors that we often do during, trying to catch yourself in that dreaded image, and making sure that doesn't stop your way. Having an ecosystem of people who are always there in your support, whether it's your anxiousness or your, the dreaded image kicking in, you got to make sure that ecosystem stands up for you all the time.
That's an amazing way and a perspective to look at, your working style. And I'm so glad, Nisha, you're very approachable. Because one of the challenges that we have with senior leadership is you get to that corner office or that special coveted place in an organization, and then you lose contact with your frontline staff, people that really matter. So I'm so glad you're making that move to make sure everybody feels valued and part of a team.
Yeah, we're going to talk about one of the key ingredients for me has been relationship. In fact, you go back, I don't know, my friend joined or not, she's on Facebook. I still have my childhood friend. I still talk to her. All the mentors, the coaches that I have had throughout my career, they are still somewhere with me, right? And same thing goes back to the organization. No matter where I have worked, I have taken a lot of pride in making sure I build that relationship and never lose those relationships in that process. So that's been the key ingredient, Priyanka, in my life.
That's amazing. And on that note, I'm going to encourage our listeners, if you have worked with Nisha or know her, do drop in a quick comment as to what's the best thing that you love about Nisha. I think it's a great way for her on this Valentine's Day to get some cheers and positive vibes from people who know her and adore her. How's that idea, Nisha?
That sounds wonderful.
That's awesome. And this applies to anybody who's going to watch it on replay later on as well. Feel free to drop in that comment. And we have a couple of other comments from our listeners as well. Let's read them on. We have Deepika Kandelwal, who says, Happy Valentine's Day. Hi, Deepika. Welcome to the show. And she also says, learn and unlearn is such a great piece of advice. So, very true. Relationships matter. Thank you, Deepika. We have Rakesh Kushwaha, who's joining us from India. Hi, Rakesh. Welcome to the show. We have Gopal Srinivasan, who says, well said on 3 C's, Nisha. Thank you. And we have another LinkedIn user as well. The list of comments is just going super fast. I'm trying to catch up with that as well. We have Vinita Simon, who says, amazing person. And Satya, who says, very impressive interview. Thank you for all of that. So do continue sharing your love for Nisha, and we'll read it as we go through this episode. Now let's get into the crux of the episode, Nisha. I know everybody's super excited to hear you talk about the PI model, the 3 secret ingredients for your success. So bring it on.
Yeah, so this is something I learned, I would say, 15 years ago in my career. And please do note down, it's an acronym, like I said. P is for performance, and I'll tell you about each one of them a little bit more. I is for image, and E is for exposure. PIE, all of them have enhancers and derailers that you can do. So let me give you, again, my examples all through these acronym words, letters. Performance, right? You always want to work on project that is meaningful. Again, meaningful to your career, to your path, meaningful to the ecosystem you're in. So I'll give you Capital One example, right? I've been here 5 years now, and this is my 4th role. I have consciously picked roles that challenges me, continuously challenges me because of this theme of learning. I want to be able to learn and deliver on what I have learned. And those projects matter to somebody, right? Matter to Capital One, matter to the ecosystem, sometimes matter to bigger ecosystem than Capital One, right? A few of the things that I'm doing currently in my job probably matters to the banking industry and overall, right? We all deal with the core banking systems, and I'm in the midst of transforming the core banking system. It's probably unraveling 30 years of history in what I'm doing. So the P, the performance has to be right level of job, right type of projects, right? Even when you start your career, you have to be conscious of what you pick. And of course, the biggest derailer on performance will be when you don't deliver. That's gonna, bar it up, right? So that's P. The I is image. When I am not in the room, what do people say about me? So I'm really appreciative of all the the comments on the on the show. But what about when I'm not in the room, right? So images people carry about you when you meet them, for example, for first time or for nth time. There is a homework for all of you as well in the I. Write down the image that you want of yourself. I often do this exercise for myself, so I'm sharing that with you. Write down what you want your image and go around and ask 5 people time to time. I do it every 3 months. Go and ask 5 of your ecosystem people, what do you think when you think of Nisha? Right? What is my image? Right? And see how close it is to what you want it to be. That's a good way. And again, the derailers of I are going to be things that you would do, like, for example, for your dreaded image, something you don't want it to be. And then you, so I'll share a bit about myself. I want to be a change agent, and I've been very clear about it. I'm a change agent, whether it's people, process, technology. But I don't want people to say, I'm bull in a china shop. That's a derailer for I, for example, right? I want to be a change agent who brings people along and gets the things at their work done. And E is exposure. This podcast is a perfect example of what Priyanka has done, right? Exposure is internal and external. The external is what we are doing today, and Priyanka does that for many, many other people. She will bring speakers on to talk externally and really, giving the platform for people to really figure out and tell their story, which again, congrats, Priyanka, you've done it so well. And the other exposure is internally. So wherever you work, and again, it doesn't have to be corporate America. You can take this all example to your small businesses, for example, if you're a small business owner or any other work that you do. Is the internal ecosystem know what you do, how you do it, and should they care what you're doing? So this pie, so what I do is a couple of things. I told you about what I do every month. Second, actually, I have a template. Happy to share that externally somehow with you guys. But I have a template, so I keep that template up every month, believe it or not. And I write against PIE what I have done and what I should do in the coming month. It's a very tedious process, but like I told you, clarity, right? This is the clarity of the direction I'm headed, because if I'm not doing that, then, I'm failing probably myself.
That's amazing. As you started talking about the three aspects of the pie model, I started reflecting about, okay, what's my image? As I'm going close to my 100th episode, like, how do people perceive me? What kind of exposure the podcast is getting through this initiative? So I think those are great ways in which you reflect and have the sense of clarity as to what your future could be shaped into.
Yes, absolutely. And your image is absolutely stunning, Priyanka. At least
Thank you.
how I can tell you.
Thank you. I really admire your kind words. And let's give that same exercise to our listeners. Take a quick minute as you're watching this episode and think about your image, and please type it in the comments so we get a chance to get to know your perspective as well on what you would like to see as your ideal image. And I think that'll be a great reflection exercise as we provide that template. We'll find a way to give that template to our listeners as part of our episode notes, Nisha.
Sure.
Awesome. So let's talk about Capital One. Nisha, I know it's a very tech-savvy banking organization. How does a day look in the life of Nisha?
Yeah, again, I'll break it simple into three portions. I actually write a weekly letter to my associates, so I've just finished the Monday letter, so I can tell you what I'm focused on. First is people. I'm very focused on people, whether it's my team, whether it's the extended team that I work with. So I have a role that touches majority of card and enterprise teams, so it's a vast scope. So I make sure I have time to connect with people at every level and every facets of my work. Women in tech, I spend a lot of time on that. So that's part of the people. Second, I would say a big chunk of my day and week goes in strategy. Like I told you, I'm working on a very, very complex strategy for modernizing some of the ecosystem in card. And so I spend a lot of time listening, learning, writing. Like that's a big part of course, I have a team who's on the support as well. So that's second part. And third, I spend a lot of time in relationship building. Again, it sometimes comes through projects, through the people aspect, but sometimes it's also, like I'll give you a Friday example. I actually went and met one of my MVP who works in ethics. The reason is we are looking at some board membership for a nonprofit. And this is the first time I meet him. He's recently joined the company. And now, of course, he is part of my LinkedIn and we are connected. So relationship building, it takes a long time and it happens piece by piece. So that's kind of summarizes my job.
That's very impressive, and relationship building is definitely very important. And I think people have started recognizing that the importance of relationship building, especially during the pandemic, as we started to work remotely. I think people feel like I should have built this kind of a relationship or a network prior to being in the situation that we are in today.
Yes, and a lot of time, actually, many of my folks who know me, I'm an introvert, Priyanka. I don't know if I've ever shared that with you, but
hey, you know what? It doesn't come across that way, so it's a pleasant surprise to all of us.
So I often get this question, right? How do I go ahead and make? I say one thing: find your passion. Find a reason to go connect with people. I'll give you another example from last year. We were all in pandemic. We in Capital One were required to take a security certification across the board. So it's a cybersecurity certification. All the engineers had to be 100% certified. I wanted to learn something because of the learner I am. I wanted to learn a new language and take the certification. I actually hunted the expert in the company who happens to be not in my team, who was in a different team. And I asked him if he would spend a couple hours with me on a weekly basis so I can do the certification. Again, that's, just again, my style of connecting with people, making sure you take time, even though you might be an introvert and you don't want to do too much of that, find reasons, your own passion areas where you naturally make that happen, that connection happen. And he was so kind. I'm so thankful to him. And, he's the reason I passed my cyber certification. So, and I still talk to him. So again, relationship building also solved my certification, and, introvert or no introvert, you can still solve it.
No, that's amazing. And I'm so glad there are like-minded leaders who are invested in each other's success, even if you don't know them.
Yes, exactly. And that makes the relationship stronger, right?
So you bring up a very interesting point, Nisha, and I want to make sure our listeners have an actionable step that they can implement in their own professional lives. Most of the times we feel when we reach out to someone, we might get a no. So why bother asking them? So there's this internal barrier within us before we even reach out. So what are some tips in terms of reaching out? What kind of language do you use to a person whom you have not met but want to connect? And how do you overcome this fear of no within yourself before you even reach out?
You're right. The fear of no, fear of rejection is in all of us, right? And especially some of us who are introverts, when we get out there, we want to make sure we get what we want, right? When we go out there. So one is the habit of knowing that the world doesn't end with one no. It's okay to receive a no. In fact, it's okay even to fail many a times, right? That's something I practice and I preach, on a constant basis. That's one of the pillars of psychology safety. If we get to that topic, I often do is celebrate failures. It's okay not to pass in the first go. It's okay to be wrong many times. So you have to constantly know that the world is not ending just because one person has said a no, or one person has rejected you, or you didn't get the first promotion, or whatever it is that you're dealing with. Second, I would say really do your homework. I often do my homework ahead of time before I approach any person. Because if I already know, again, back to the image of that person is, oh yeah, they are naturally going to say no to everything. Why even bother to go, even though they might be expert in the field? There's not one expert in the field. You will find hundreds of them out there if you do your research, right? So make sure you talk to a few of your confident people, right, like in your network, and say, hey, I'm about to reach, whether they are above your title or below your title. Usually above the title is the biggest hesitations. Make sure you do your research and find out, hey, Priyanka, have you heard of this VP named Nisha? How is she? Can I really talk to her, or will I be, slapped on my face? So make sure you do your homework, and you usually will get enough nuggets to make sure you create your confidence to go back and ask for what you want to ask.
No, that's very impressive. I hope that's an actionable takeaway. I mean, I personally feel, most of the times the challenge with elevating our careers comes from within ourselves than the external factors. I mean, those are contributing factors, but I think there are ways in which we can break our internal systems to get to the next level as well. We have a handful of live comments and questions that the listeners want to ask you, so let's get there going. And to our listeners, keep those questions coming. We're going to answer as many questions as we can with Nisha's time. All right, so the first one is from Deepika Kandelwal, who asks, how do you find core projects or roles, and how much of sponsorship helps with that kind of an opportunity?
Yeah, how do you find core projects? Depending on the place you are working, find out what are the enterprise goals that they are hitting. So in Capital One, we are fortunate. Our CEO shares his goals every year, so we know where he's headed or where he's taking the company. Once you know those projects or goals at that level, you start breaking it down into your department and finding ways you can contribute and go and maybe even take a job that is requiring for that particular goal to be met. sponsorship absolutely helps, right? It doesn't come that suddenly you go, Deepika, and ask somebody, hey, Nisha, are you ready to give me a job? That doesn't, it's not a one-day thing, nor is it a checkbox thing. You invest time in relationship building, you invest time in researching, you have enough data to back you up, and then you go and ask for what you're asking, and people will be delighted. I mean, I've had so many people all through my career who has been just more than happy to help me get to the right project, the right role, or right, companies many a time, right? In fact, my boss who I work with, Mark Matheson, I've known him for 10 years. I knew him in Fannie Mae. He brought me in Capital One. In fact, not even Capital One. Wherever he has gone, he has called me again and again, right? So that's what many of my seniors do. And I'm very thankful that I have that ecosystem. Make sure, Deepika, you have that ecosystem to go and ask for what you're looking for.
Thank you so much, Nisha, and thanks, Deepika, for that amazing question. We have another question from Gayatri Mantrala, who says, Nisha, thank you for being so humble and approachable, which she is. The question is, how do you disrupt the system without burning bridges and creating huge impact?
Yeah, so change it's not an easy thing by any means. In fact, the topic I'm dealing with right now, I have two very diverse views, one from my tech leadership and one from my business leadership. If you're a change agent like me, the few things that you're going to do early on to describe the why and the what of the change so that people see eye to eye into what that disruption is all about. At the end of the day, think about change. Change is not easy on human beings in general. I don't know about you, but I was fortunate because my dad moved every 2-3 years, even when we were in India. He worked for a commercial bank. So I am used to change, but people usually are very, very anxious and afraid of change in general. They have to know what is in it for me in the equation. Again, so you don't want to do the change by burning bridges because it will be no good for anybody. The change is useful when people have bought into it and people are attached to what you're trying to disrupt and making sure that disruption means something to them. At the end of the day, I'll tell you, Gayatri, you have got to ask this question: what does change mean to me? Meaning the people who are receiving the change. Me is the audience for you. So once you identify and clarify that question, that change will be not just something Gayatri is running with, it will be change that people want in the ecosystem.
That's very true. And, as we look at our careers, Nisha, growing up in India and then moving to a different country, figuring out our career and, building our own legacy, there's a lot of change which we don't even realize that we've done over the period of years.
Constant. When I tell people I move houses 2-3 years. In fact, I was just joking. My husband is like, yeah, we are done with this house. We should move again. I'm like, yeah, your kids are going to kill you. You're going to move now. One is in high school. One is about to go to middle school. But change is for me, it's constant. And you have to love to be able to change. You have to see what is the positive side of the change in order to make that change, right? As kids, I'll tell you, it was very hard on me. I didn't realize when dad was doing that, but I'm so thankful of how he has shaped who I am today because of that constant change. He once moved from actually Calcutta. I don't know if you guys know, but Calcutta is a metropolitan. He moved from there to Jodhpur, which was in Rajasthan. And we're like, what? We are going to go from city to a village? How is that going to help us? And me and my sister, we were so unhappy about that change. But yeah, change is very difficult usually on people. That is obvious.
That's very true. And we get used to a certain way of looking at life and getting used to the comforts, in a certain place or with certain people. So as they always say, right, change is the only constant.
Absolutely.
Right. So to our listeners, tell us, what is one thing that comes to your mind when you think of change? And, we would love to see different perspectives. So feel free to drop it in the comment box as well. Now let's get to the second part of our episode, Nisha, which is talking about creating this psychologically safe haven for team members. What are you doing as a leader that we can all learn from in terms of creating a safe space for people irrespective of, the diverse walks of life that they come in from?
Yeah, so let me boil down again three simple things that I do on a daily basis. One, I'm generally a very vulnerable person. So I go in my all hands, 200 people or however number of people join. I usually I'm very open and honest about what I am facing. The pandemic was not easy here for any one of us. I was honest how I am dealing with it and how I'm facing it and what I'm doing about it. And people saw that honesty and were able to raise their hand. So that's one thing I often do, vulnerability. Second, like I told you, we actually celebrate failure. I will often talk about my own failures to the team, and I inculcate that behavior with all of my team members that, hey, let's talk about failure in open. Let's talk about, what we can do about that failure or what was your learning so that when you fail, you don't want your coworkers or your friends to fail, right? Might as well, it's like a bad recipe, right? You tried something, pie is something, definitely I cannot make. So if I try, I'm going to fail and I'm going to tell my friends, hey, don't try this recipe, right? So you don't want to leave that key knowledge with just yourself when you failed. Think about it, pay it forward, right? You don't want your friends to be failing on the same topic. And third, I'll tell you back again, relationships. When you build strong relationships, you can go talk to them good, bad, ugly all day long. You can tell them right on the spot, Nisha, that sentence that you told me, it was not well taken, received by me. And it's okay for you to tell without feeling that there are any repercussions of that statement to me. And same behaviors you want to do upwards and downwards in your organization. Doesn't matter what level you are on. You got to make sure that relationships are something you constantly invest in.
That's a very interesting way of looking at building relationships. But Nisha, oftentimes, this happens where people take it personally. They might get offended when things don't go their way, or, when a comment is passed about, in an honest opinion of how the team is functioning. So how do you take the emotion out of the logic, especially in the banking industry? What are some ways in which you cope up?
So I'll be lying to you if I tell you emotions can be detached from human beings. If you are a human being, you are emotional human being. Now, how do you process that information and what do you do about it is the point there, right? So one thing is I do not differentiate too much between people in my home or people at my work. I have always treated them all pretty similar, in fact, right? At work, I have friends. At home, I have family. Of course, family is a priority for all of us. But at work, also, you form friendships with the same set of people. So you're going to be naturally emotional about what you're talking about. But sifting through what is the reality is often important in those emotional statements. Like you said, somebody got hurt, somebody felt negative. You got to be able to talk through that. And I'm assuming professional setups, you always are mature enough to deal with that and be able to talk through, like, hey, look, Priyanka, that really hurt me. Let's talk through it. And can we make sure next time that doesn't happen? And usually, you will find maybe less than 1% that I've found in 20 years of working who are not ready to listen when you have a heart-to-heart talk, because that open honesty will take a long way. And again, you will be surprised. You might land up with that relationship forever.
That's very true. And I agree. Emotions are an integral aspect of us, but it's how we process and not let the emotions overpower our thinking. I think that's the success differentiating factor. Now, another question on teams. We have one from Mamata Belamkonda, who would love to know, how do we keep our team motivated despite conflicts and obstacles?
Yeah, so conflict, if it is between two people, you got to really sit down and help them sort through that conflict. Now, of course, depending on where you are working, Mamta, you always have your HR and practices in the workplace to deal with if they are between two people. If it is about the project obstacles or what you're working on and the conflict is arising from those, then you sift as a leader, you have to sift through what is reality versus what is. So sometimes, like obstacles usually are things that you can help in by leaning in as a leader, whether it's dates or, in a project, usually it's either I don't have enough resources or I don't have enough time to complete it. So as a leader, you got to be able to stand for your teams and to be able to make sure motivation comes beyond all these projects and all. Motivation is driven by people regardless of their conflicts and obstacles. It's driven by what they do for their own value systems and how they make sure they are keeping up to that mental and the stress balance that they have to deal with. So for that, I would say try meditation. That's what I do.
That's a very a practical emotional ritual, I would say, where we can take some time out to reflect, and I think it changes our perspective on a lot of things, the way we look at things.
Yes, meditation has been a lifesaver for me, I'll tell you.
That's awesome. So delving a little bit deeper into that, how do you handle low moments apart from meditation? Do you have any other success strategies there?
Absolutely. So one, I'll call my life coach my dad. Usually talk to him first thing in the morning. He's in India. Um, just like probably many of you, he has faced a lot, but he's a very successful individual, and I learn a lot from him every day. So usually I'll end up calling him. If that doesn't help, books. I'm a voracious reader, so I'll pick up books and I will sort through whatever I'm dealing with through one of the probably authors who are written a book about it probably. So I'll go through that and I'll go make sure. And third, I run. So I go running early in the morning. That's like at wee hours, 5:30 a.m. So I make sure I take out my anxiety, my stress, all in running, or in these days in the cold.
No matter what, right? Nothing stops you from taking care of you.
Self-care is absolutely a must.
That's awesome. And I'm so glad the podcast is a small compliment in terms of being part of your list of things that you reach out to gain wisdom from our guests as well.
Yeah, there are many of them who have inspired me along the way.
Thank you. That's amazing. So let me ask you this, Nisha. When you look at your 20 years of successful corporate work, what is an accomplishment that you're really proud of when you look back?
At work, I would say this constant desire of learning, not being afraid of failures. I've had several, my cup of tea, but still being able to chart my way the way I wanted to. So very happy with how things have shaped, very happy where I am today at Capital One, very happy with my mentor network that I have and coaches who keep me honest about many of these things. So yeah, along the way, all the relationships that I have built, all the lessons I have learned, hopefully continue to learn till I get to work.
That's very inspiring, and each one of us needs to continuously learn and improvise. I think that's one key thing that we all can learn from you. Now, we're going to have a fun rapid fire round. But before that, Nisha, I would love to read some of the wonderful accolades that our listeners are showering on you as part of our Valentine's Day. And to our listeners, we also have a free mentoring session as a giveaway. So if you are really interested in a mentoring session with this amazing tech blazer, drop in a quick comment saying yes on mentoring. And I'm going to make it easy this time, given we have a lot of live listeners tuning in. So we'll pick a lucky listener based on somebody who can additionally put their name in the hat for this wonderful mentoring session as well. So let's read these quick comments. I have a lot of them, so I'm going to sift through all of these. We have Madana Karpagam, who says, "Hello Nisha, Priyanka, glad to tune in today." And Deepika has a couple of comments about relationship matters, some of the advice that you shared as well. "Hi Nisha, golden nuggets of wisdom" from a LinkedIn user. And here comes the best part. Vinita Simon says, "Nisha is an amazing person." When we ask them about how do you see Nisha as part of the image in the pie model, we have Gopal Srinivasan, who says, "Very approachable." And Madana Karpagam also says, "Thanks for emphasizing the importance of relationships." Deepika says, "She's not worked with you, but I find her very approachable." Raja Abbas says you're very authentic and caring. We have Geeta Lodes who says love the pie model. Prashant Nerkar, great advice, Nisha. We have another LinkedIn user who says thanks for sharing the model and articulating it. Gopal Srinivasan who says great advice on not burning bridges while trying to bring great outcomes. And we have a handful of listeners who want the free mentoring session with you. So Nisha, you're most sought after now. You got to sift through to figure out who that lucky listener is. All right, we have one more question which I want to take from our listeners, and feel free to continue dropping in your questions. Given the limited time we have with Nisha, Nisha will try to get to your questions after the end of the episode as well as part of the LinkedIn or the YouTube comments. So feel free to continue dropping in those questions. Now, Amitav Parida, who's joined us, would like to know what's the biggest failure that taught you the most?
Oh gosh, I wish there was one. But I'll tell you one that I remember. It's almost very foolish. I don't know if I learned the most from it, but I was a developer at a small company, Charlotte. I think we were in Huntersville, North Carolina at that time, and I was doing some database maintenance. And this was our entire. We used to have a table, crops history table, and I used to run the production, so every night that will be deduped, and I had several processes running that day. And there, probably, I don't know if it was midnight or post midnight, I just executed a command, drop table crops history.
I can feel what must have happened next.
It took us 5 days. These are not the days when we are in cloud and everything is available. It took me 5 days to recover. It was a very, very embarrassing mistake. I still remember it. A lot of my clients and of course the owners of the company, the people were nice, but it was quite foolish, and I don't know. I still feel so horrible about that. I often talk about it though, openly, but I can't tell you how bad I feel, Amitabh, while telling you this. So it was pretty embarrassing.
But how you bounce back from some of those failures and how you share that wisdom of enlightenment to all of us, I think that's the biggest success.
You got to keep moving. You can't stop just because of something. You got to remember it. You got to remember it. You got to remember what you did, learn from it, and move on.
I know moving on is like the crucial part where a lot of us try to keep rewinding the past.
Yes.
All right. So we have a fun rapid fire round for you, Nisha. Are you ready for it?
Ready.
All right. So I'm so excited to put Nisha in the hot seat. You tell me the first thing that comes to your mind when I say the following and in one word. Who's your role model?
My dad, 2 words.
That's amazing. Hopefully he gets a chance to listen to this episode. You tell me, his feedback as well. What does happiness mean to you, Nisha?
My kids.
How do you define success?
3 words: learn, unlearn, relearn.
I love your 3 C's and, the pie model. Everything is like 3 specific syllables for Nisha. What is one fun thing about Nisha that you haven't shared with anyone, even at Capital One?
I don't know. They might have heard this. I don't know it's fun or not, but I had a very bad accident when I was a teenager. And that, broke a large part of my face. So I don't know it's fun or not, but it's back again together. So.
Hey, but that goes back to one of the key traits that has helped you become who you are today, which is that moving on, bouncing back, learning from some of the challenges that we have to ace. And Thank you for being very vulnerable and sharing some of the most intimate moments in your life with us. Really appreciate it. All right, so the fun question here. What is your native language and one word to describe Nisha in it?
Native language, Hindi. To say it in Hindi, I don't know. It's change agent. That's who I am.
Maybe we should phone your dad to ask him. That'd be a good way, right?
That is true. He will call me Bhola,
And what does it
if
mean?
if that means anything to anybody. Bhola means innocent.
You're definitely somebody who, based on my relationship with you, having known you for a couple of years now, is somebody who believes in sharing your success and elevating everybody else, and having that innocent quality that everybody is great and everybody has the potential to succeed. I think that's the way I look at it. And there's a fun thing that one of our live listeners have actually shared. Anita Mittal, she's a great badminton player. Hey, that's awesome, right?
That is true.
That's awesome. This was amazing, Nisha. Such a great episode. We've unveiled several dimensions of you. I know you are an expert in several of these, be it with PI model or psychological safety. But I thought, my listeners would get a flavor of you and sometimes the unseen side of Nisha as part of this episode today. So thank you so much for being on a show.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Priyanka. And thank you for everything you're doing. Really amazing. Like I said, I'm 97th on this show. I'm looking forward to 100 and many more and continue being the paid forward champion. And we all learn from you. So keep paving the way.
Hey, thank you so much, Nisha. That really means a lot. And I learn a lot from my guests and my listeners. So I want to say a big thank you to each one of my 97 guests and the ones that are coming in as well for making the show what it is today. So thank you so much. And on that note, to our listeners, if you're watching this on LinkedIn or YouTube, please give us a like, follow me, Priyanka Komla, and a Curryupstartup Leadership Podcast page so you can continue to get these LinkedIn Live notifications whenever we go live. We go live Sundays, Mondays, and Tuesdays at 1 p.m. Sunday, Monday 5 p.m. and Tuesdays at noon. So follow me. And if you're watching this on YouTube, give us a like and subscribe as well. So we get to know this podcast has inspired you to be a better version of yourself. But we aren't done yet. We have this amazing free mentoring session to give away. So we have at least 2 people who have explicitly said yes to mentoring. So what's your bandwidth, Nisha? Do you want to pick one?
I can help too.
That's awesome. So we have 2 interesting listeners. So we have Madhana Karpagam, who's won the free mentoring session. Hey, Madhana, thank you and congratulations. Then we have Gayatri Mantrala, who also loves to have a mentoring session with you. Thank you so much, Gayatri, for sharing your wonderful views. So feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn so I'll get a chance to connect to you offline with Nisha to claim your free mentoring session. And this was amazing. I'm going to read a couple of other live comments and then we'll call it a day. We have Deepika who says, great listening. Bharat Nagpal who says, thank you, Nisha, for sharing your views on career growth. Vasu Rajguru who says, thank you, Nisha and Priyanka. This is a great experience. Marshi Appel who says, amazing, Nisha. Well, she definitely is. Raja Abbas who says, great session. Oh, I have an interesting comment here. Vinitha Simon who says, Nisha is one of the most resilient persons I've come across. Nisha. And I'm going to sum up with this amazing comment from Pat. Nisha is an awesome mentor and an authentic human being. Happy Valentine's Day. So I think that'll be a great way to pay tribute to Nisha for her ongoing legacy to help everyone succeed on a daily basis in their professional lives. Do you have any other parting thoughts, Nisha, before we wrap up the episode?
No, just continue paying forward, team. Thank you so much for listening today. And thank you, Priyanka, again, for giving us this platform. Let's keep building it one block at a time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Nisha. And to our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you'll continue to enjoy these episodes and the ones that are lined up this week and the coming week as well. So continue to hit that like and subscribe so you get all our live notifications, whichever channel you're watching it on. If you're hearing this on a podcast streaming platform, please give us a like and subscribe there as well. So we'll continue to turn out amazing episodes. Until another episode that's going to happen tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern, this is Priyanka Komla, your host of Curryupstartup Leadership Podcast, a podcast to spotlight purpose-driven Asian leaders making an impact, signing off. Thank you and have an amazing Valentine's Day.